Welcome everyone to my channel Data Insights with Gaurav. We are starting off with a new series for Pandas, which is essentially a Python library for data analysis and data visualization. So we'll focus in this series, we will focus on the Pandas library. So we are starting off with basics, which is the data frame creation, right? So let's try to understand what data frames are and how is it used for getting data into the pandas data frame. All right. So let's start off. So basically, let's try to understand what data frames are. So and what pandas is essentially, right? So like I said, pandas is a popular open source data manipulation and analysis library, right? And it is very easy to use. It has essentially two data structures, which is a data frame and series. Okay, so and these two data structures provide a wide range of functions and methods so that you can do all the data manipulation, cleaning, exploration, and analysis tasks. Right. So, what are the key features around pandas? So basically, you could do data manipulation, which means you could work around the data, filter it, sort it, group it, and do all the XYZ stuff for manipulating the data. And then basically you can also clean the data where you can remove the missing data, right? You can do remove the duplicates, you can transform the data and all that stuff, right? With data analysis, what you do is you basically then move into data visualization. You try to do descriptive statistics and stuff like that. And then this library is very popular and it integrates with all other libraries in the Python ecosystem, which is like, for example, NumPy, Matplotlib, and skitlearn, right? So this library is actually very popular for data analysis, right? And we'll try to explore that in detail, right? So let's try to go to the documentation here, so and to see what this data frame has to offer, right? So this is, I'm here at the pandas documentation, right? This documentation, I'll give this reference in the comment. So this documentation has all the things that are required for work on pandas, right? So like I said, these there are two essential data structures, which is data frame and series. So let's start off with data frames. So this is basically, in layman's term, it is used for loading data from some relational database or some relational structure, whether it's an Excel, it's a CSV, it's a any different file, like for example JSON or Paraquay or stuff like that, right? So it basically helps you load the relational data in memory. All right, so this data structure is useful for getting the data in memory. Okay, so this particular thing needs these. So this constructor, right? This is a class, so this is a constructor. It needs these following things in it. All right, so what we'll do is we'll try to do a quick demo on it. All right. All right, so here I am at the Visual Studio Code. So I've used this ID for, I've chosen this ID, which is available open source. So I can use this ID. You can use any ID of your choice, right? So what I'm here in Visual Studio Code, where I'm using Jupyter Notebook for demonstrating this particular thing, right? So what do I have? So before running this, you would want to have pandas installed, right? So you'll possibly would want to have do something like this: pip install, and then you will want to do pandas, right, in your machine. Of course, you need Python there, right? So you have to install Python and then install these libraries. So you would need essentially these libraries: pip install pandas. I'm also using numpys here. uh, so possibly you would also want to do a numpy, right? We will also look at numpys later on in another series. So numpys, and you would want to, we can at least live with these two libraries. So pip install pandas and pip install numpy. So once you install that, right? So how will you import a library in Python? So you'll say import pandas as PD. So generally in pandas, people try to have an alias called PD. So it will be import pandas as PD, right? And I believe I haven't used this. So let's get rid of this. Let's see what happens. So this is your pandas library. Now I'm just showing you, I'm demonstrating in different ways in which you can load data into a data frame. All right. So I am actually trying to demonstrate this, right? How will you pass multiple data here to this parameter, right? And how does it infer, right? So that's the essential uh, crux of this video, right? So so I have this data, right? So this is basically a dictionary, right? Dictionary contains list, right? So basically it has an order ID, key, and values as the list, right? It has a product, then it some list of values here, customer ID, some list of values here, is prime, then some else, and so on and so forth, right? So I've tried to cover every possible data type here. Like for example, this is an integer, right? This is a string, right? This is a Boolean value. This is an integer again, right? This is a float value, right? This is a date column, right? So date time actually. So I'm using pandas data range function to generate some dates starting from here with 5 periods, right? So it will be 1st of January 2022, then 2nd of January, 3rd of January until 5 rows are generated, right? And I've just converted that to a list because we're passing the list here, right? Then I have order status. I have some order status like pending and shipped. Then I have some shipping address, right? And some order period, right? So there's a period data type which helps you get periods, right? So I'm using period range that helps you get the list of so it helps you get lists of periods. So I've converted that to a list, right? So basically I've essentially tried covering all the Panda data types here. So let's try to run this and see how it goes, right? So when I run this, you can see that this is how the data looks like. So you have your order ID here. So this particular column is converted to a column here, right? This particular key is converted to this column, right? So all keys that you have in the dictionary are the columns of the data frame, and all the values in this particular list is actually converted to a row, right, in the data frame. Now, these are called indexes, right? So or labels, right? So 0, 1, 2 is by default. The labels, they get auto generated, right? So this is your data frame that is loaded from this particular data set, which is a dictionary of list, right? So this is one way of doing it, right? Also, now I can tweak the data in multiple ways. I'll show you multiple ways in which the data can be loaded into your data frame, right? So you could essentially the same data set. I have just refactored the data set to be a list of dictionaries. So this is a list, right, of dictionary, right? So this is one dictionary. Then this is second dictionary, third dictionary, fourth and fifth, right? And what does it have? It has a key, which will come into as a column name, and this is a value, right? This is a key, this is a value, this is a key, this is a value. If I try to regenerate this, right? So it's essentially the same data set, just this is how it will fetch the columns, right? And these values will be converted to respective rows, right? So you can generate data by using list of dictionaries, right? Third way, again, the same data set, I've just refactored that. It could be a list for data and another list for columns. So you can create a column list, right? And then you can create a data, which is list of list, right? So this will be one row, this will be second row, and this will be third row, and so on and so forth, right? So if I run this, it will generate same data, but here the columns will come from this list, right? And data will come from this, right? Now you may say here you have column list automatically with the data, so you need not pass anything, only data is sufficient. But here, because you need another column list, right? So you'll have to pass this, because here there is no data for columns here, right? So you'll have to give names, otherwise it'll give automatic 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you'll have to pass columns equal to columns, which is the list of column names. So then when you pass this to the constructor, it will generate the same output like before, right? So that is the third way, right? You could essentially also do something like this. You can have the same thing, column list here again, right? But it could be list of tuples. So here you have list of list, right? So this particular row is in the list, right? Square brackets. Here it's just a tuple, right? So instead of list, you have tuples. So that is why I'm saying list of tuples. It'll again same call will just generate the output again, right? Then it could also be, instead of tuples, you could have name tuples, right? So what are name tuples? Basically, they are tuples in Python, right? So from collections module, you have something called as name tuple, which is a class which helps you give name to the tuple. So here, if you look at this tuple, right? This tuple does not have any name, right? So if I want to access the first, it will be 0, 1, 2, and all that, right? So here I'm giving a name to the tuple. So I'm creating a name tuple here where the name is my name tuple, and it has some field names, right? Then when I'm calling this order, right? So I'm doing this order and I'm passing the value. So this 1001 will belong to order ID. Widget will belong to product, right? C001 will belong to customer ID, right? So that way, this particular API, right? I'll just pass in the data, and this data has internally is because it's a name tuple, it will have the name of columns. So it will automatically generate the same data frame like before, right? So these column names will come from this particular, name tuple entries, and then this will be a row, right? This will be a row, right? So that's how you can generate the data, right? Then, so this is like you have hard coded data, right? There may be scenarios where you're trying to load the data from external files, right? Now, these external files could be of different data types, different types, not data types, right? So it could be a CSV, it could be a JSON, it could be an Excel, right? It could be a paraquet file, it could be an HTML, or it could be a feather file, right? So when you try to load this, simple, what you have to do is you have to say pandas.read CSV. So pandas essentially has a lot of functions here. So if you say read, right, you can see that it has a lot of functions here, right? Read clipboard, read CSV, read Excel, read feather, right? And XYZ. We even read SQL, right? It helps you connect to the database. So you can have multiple functions here, right? So I'm using essentially just focusing on a few, right? So I can use read CSV to read the CSV file. Now I already have a CSV file here, right? In my folder, in my current structure, I'll push this to GitHub repo, and I'll give my link to that particular GitHub repo where you can, download all these CSV files and also this notebook, right? And you can run it on your machines after having installed pandas and Python on your machines, right? So what is this? Again, it's the same data set. I'm just trying to show what are the different ways of doing it, right? So if I do read CSV, it just reads the CSV. Now this CSV has the same data that we had earlier in the hard-coded set, right? So read JSON, again, it's simple. Read JSON, pass the JSON name, right? And because it's in the same folder, I need not even give the path, right? So directly reads the current folder and you get the JSON file, right? Same goes for read Excel, right? Read Excel, you have the XLS file, right? Just pass it along and it'll read the data for you, right? Then read paraquet file, so it will just read the paraquet file, right? So this will be read like this, and then HTML, it will read the HTML data, right? So if you observe, right, this particular thing gives in your HTML data. If you go through this documentation, right, you can see that it says that it returns list of data frames, right? So actually I have to access the data frame. So what I'm doing here is I'm reading the first uh, element of the array, right? List, actually element of the list, and I'm reading that data frame and just reassigning it back, right? So this is your data frame, right? And then you feather file can read this feather file like this, right? So these are the few functions, right? So essentially, in summary, what did we do here? We actually read from some hard-coded data, and towards the end we read from some files, right? So that's it for the current video, right? So this in this video we learned about reading from reading a data frame, right? Loading the data. In the next videos, right, what we'll do is we'll try to we have the data now, right? So we'll have to work through the data, right? So we'll try to look at what are the data types of the columns, how to know what are the data types of the columns, how to know what about the metadata about this data frame, right? How can we like, for example, you have this customer ID, right? So we generally don't have tend to have spaces in the column list, right? So we'll try to see how to change this, how to make it lowercase and stuff like that, right? So we have the data now, we have the base ready. We'll try to do some exploration in the upcoming videos, right? Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this stuff, consider subscribing to my channel and giving a thumbs up to my video. Thank you so much. See you around. Bye bye.